DMGT here, your new favorite place for all things music, gaming, and tech. And Tchia is a game that is full of hearts and soul, and you can tell that the developers really took great care in delivering this experience and story. The game, setting, and folklore itself is inspired by New Caledonia, which is Awaseb's co-founder's homeland, and takes a very Breath of the Wild and Zelda-like approach to its gameplay and open world. And yet, for an indie game that is primarily meant to be an homage to New Caledonia and its culture, it still manages to take some risks on the gameplay side to freshen up the open world formula. There are definitely some quirks and not all of the risks pay off, but as a whole, this game is a really pleasant experience. On the story side, without any spoilers, you play as the titular character Tchia, a girl with special soul jumping abilities, which is basically the ability to morgue or possess different items in the world, but we'll get back to that in the gameplay section. The basic premise here is that your father gets captured by Puidua with their cloth-like henchmen, and there's also another main bad guy, and Tchia sets off on a journey to rescue her father and meet some friends along the way. A lot of the major story beats progress through rhythm sections, ceremonial offerings, and folklore-style storytelling. It's an interesting way to use music as a storytelling mechanic, but I will say that these rhythm sections tended to go a little bit longer than I would have liked. That part will come down to personal preference, but on the bright side, I think having all the voice acting be in French and Drehu adds a really cool layer of authenticity to the story.
Tchia,
However, looks can be and are deceiving, and while there are heartwarming and comforting moments in the story, there are also some darker aspects to the story, even if they're handled with a little bit of humor.
Ouais, il reste vivant pendant quelques secondes.
The chicken is of course a mild example, but I didn't want to spoil anything, so you'll have to play it and see for yourself. I don't know if this story in particular will win any awards, but I think it's just cool to see some different types of representations of different parts of the world. The open world is actually pretty impressive for an indie game, and it takes some very clearly Assassin's Creed inspired high points to unlock points of interest in the surrounding area. This won't be anything new for open world veterans, and a lot of the items you identify are mostly cosmetic, but the scenery, world design of the islands I think is one of its strongest points, and it's just really nice to look at. Another aspect that is definitely Breath of the Wild inspired are these totem shrines. There are a few of these throughout the map that you have to carve specific totem designs for to unlock, and once inside, each of them offer different challenges in order to attain the soul fruit at the end to increase Tchia's powers. Some are more puzzle based, some are more combat based or stealth based. I won't spoil any of them here because I think they are a fun discovery. However, on the gameplay side, this is where Tchia takes its biggest risk and deviation from the Breath of the Wild inspiration, and that is soul jumping, the ability to take over or possess different items and animals in the world. This seemingly minor mechanic actually makes a pretty big difference in traversal, how you approach combat sections, and while not every single animal and item functions uniquely, there's enough variation here that most players should have a relatively unique gameplay experience. And yet, one of Tchia's biggest strengths is also one of its weaknesses, as it doesn't really get used to its fullest extent, particularly as you're progressing through the story. These are sections in the game where I really wish Awaseb's team took a little bit more advantage of this very cool mechanic and maybe incorporated some of the platforming you do in the shrines as you maybe jump between animals or different items as you traverse over the ocean. Ultimately though, it's all about possessing a bird and being able to poop with that bird. This is a good mechanic. This is game of the year quality right here. Still, this was an interesting ability to incorporate combat, as Tchia herself doesn't have any combat mechanics, but possessing lamps and explosives to clear out enemy encampments, back to the Assassin's Creed Ubisoft formula, offers for a unique way to interact with the world. Finally, over to the rhythm sections, you have this ukulele that you can use in order to change the time of day, summon different animals, or just free play if you're musically inclined. Again, it's another interesting mechanic to incorporate into your game, but I wish it was just used a little bit more fluidly through different sections of the game, because you have these rock stacking puzzles that unlock different songs, but again, it really loops back to summoning an animal or a different time of day, and then when it gets used again, it's exclusively in the story beat rhythm sections. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to give you the impression that I didn't like it. I very much enjoyed all of these mechanics in the game. These are just sections of the game that I hope Awaseb's team can improve upon in future installments. All of that said, Tchia is a game that has a lot of charm, a lot of character, so for $30 or included in the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers, it's totally worth the play. I mean, look at this. There's a dog spinning a turtle like a DJ. This is incredible. As a whole, I really enjoyed my time playing this game. The story itself isn't that long. I think you can crush this out in like 5 hours, but there's definitely enough room for exploration and just really enjoy and take in the sights and the views of the world. The soul jumping mechanic definitely brought a fresh feel to the open world formula. I think it's going to be a very influential mechanic in years to come, and while it's not getting the same attention that Stray did last year or even Hi-Fi Rush last month, it should absolutely be in the conversation for Indie Game of the Year, and I give Tchia a solid 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked the review, consider giving a thumbs up, consider subscribing. I promise the PSVR 2 and Last of Us videos are coming soon as well, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.